Today, the channel is what is the way to navigate the COVID vaccine push by authorities. So the date of today's channel is the 10th of March 2021, and there is becoming now an increasing push by authorities for vaccines, the COVID vaccine. Some places have made it mandatory, such as Israel, and it's kind of like an apartheid occurring now where people who have been vaccinated are being treated as a higher class of citizen than people who haven't been vaccinated, which, you know, it's diabolical and nefarious. So that's a bit of a concern. How do we navigate that? Let's see what we got. Greetings and thank you for the question. How do you navigate the push for the COVID vaccine by authorities? Let us start by saying that you are entitled to your own personal sovereignty. A basic right as a human being that is bestowed upon you by birth is to have the freedom to decide what goes into your body, whether it be foods or medicines. Already in the Earth-human paradigm, there has been erosion into this personal sovereignty, because there are many vaccines which are already mandatory. However, mandatory in a surreptitious way. So you can choose not to have the vaccines, but you are denied basic services and welfare that is given to good citizens that submit to mandatory vaccinations. As you are aware, there is light and dark in the human field. It is a dualistic planet, and the duality is becoming more pronounced as the polarization to the light and the dark accelerates, as more pass through the gauntlet of awakening and become cognizant that there is a unified malevolence pitting itself against humanity. And those that are polarized to the darkness become more brazen, become more determined to bring about their vision, especially now that they are witnessing the awakening of the humanity being, of the unified consciousness, which is all of humanity, those that have chosen to polarize to the light, unifying as one, as a single entity, a single humanity, the humanity being. So, foremost, paramount in their strategy is to interrupt this awakening, to prevent the coming together as the unified force. For you to be in a state where you are able to vibrate with a high frequency, which further moves you into the coalescence as the single being, unified with all humanity that have polarized to the light as the single force. So now that there is a push for every human on the earth to be vaccinated, then the extrapolation based on what we have said, what their tactic is, what it is they are determined to prevent from happening, then you would be correct to assume that the vaccination itself is not about your health, it's not about protecting you or protecting those around you, but is instead about doing what they can to interrupt this coming together, this coalescence into the single being, the awakening of the humanity being, the transcendence from duality, becoming beings completely of the light, purging all of the darkness, no longer being a pack mule for the darkness, for the dark ones. They have worked studiously and cleverly for a very long time to manifest their vision of the world, which places them as the kings and queens, the gods and goddesses, over the subjugated majority, the overwhelming majority of the people, impoverished and denied many of their human rights, including access to information, which is vital for their continued growth and awakening, and vital for the average human to become aware that there is a darkness, to share the information, what they know, to others, so that all of you can go through the gauntlet of awakening. So the vaccine, in coordination with other technologies they are now bringing into more so the human field, is designed to interrupt your awakening, to suppress your awakening, to draw you into the body, to separate you from those around you. So those that have been vaccinated are treated better, are sculpted by the narrative to be better people, better humans. And those that choose not to be vaccinated are lesser humans, are selfish, dangerous, stupid, and should be shunned and abused and treated as criminals, as unclean. However, this agenda relies entirely upon your acquiescence, to your compliance. And so it will end when each individual makes the personal choice to not comply, to not acquiesce. Those that pull the strings, those that have the dystopian vision of the future, where they are the kings and queens, and you are the impoverished masses, denied human rights, denied access to all things which will help you to flourish, to come together, to unify, to express into a greater version of self, to awaken the humanity being, to pass through the transition event from the 3D into the 5D, to begin the next earthly paradigm. It is this at all costs they must prevent. And your compliance, your acquiescence brings about this vision. So, if you have awakened and you have had to realize that you live in a dualistic matrix, and that there is light and dark, and that the dark is unified and pitting itself against the light, making inroads into light, infecting the light. This is its modus operandi. And with this awakened state, you can see anything which comes from that polarity is to fulfill a purpose antithetical to your own expansion, to the expansion of humanity, to the coming together, to the stepping through the transition into the 5D, where there is complete transcendence from duality, and their power through darkness no longer has sway, no longer has meaning. So, from a personal perspective, your contribution to the blossoming of the light and this golden future which lay ahead as a possible timeline for humanity is to not comply, is to not acquiesce, is to make a stand and say, I shall not recede anymore. I shall not give up my liberties any further. I no longer will be a victim of the narrative, believing a message which is not truth, but instead an agenda that does not serve me, does not serve humanity, does not serve the light. And then from this place of wakefulness, where you have released your identification with the darkness, and you have purged to the light, in an awakened state, not complying, not acquiescing, then spread the awakening, share information, become versed in the truths about the vaccine, about what is in it, what its effects are, how dangerous or safe it truly is. The information is available. However, it is purposefully scrubbed from the mainstream narrative, because the truth does not serve the darkness. Misdirection, untruths, secrecy, this is what serves the darkness. Because the darkness is motivated by its own consolidation of power, which is not a growth, a contribution, but instead is a stripping from those that are not their allies. Growing their power, growing their wealth, their influence, by taking it from you and your fellow humans. So, if in the location you are in, the forces of darkness, those forces which are pushing the vaccine which you have made the effort to understand, what are the consequences, what is the science, how safe is it, how dangerous is it, and when you fully understand and you can, from an informed place, choose to not comply, not acquiesce, it is possible that the forces will manipulate the laws, the infrastructure, the systems and processes which are part of your society to make your life more difficult, to make your life untenable. However, it is a journey which is much larger than you, which will span much more than your lifetime. Your choice that you make in regard to this vaccine will have a direct impact on the lives lived by your progeny, by your descendants. If you choose to live a life which is easier, where you still have access to the abundance which you enjoy, by submitting to the vaccine, then you are making a decision not just for yourself, but for all of humanity. All of humanity that is living now, and all of humanity that is yet to be born. Because there is a very distinct bifurcation in timelines occurring right now. If humanity chooses to go down the path of compliance and acquiescence and submits to the vaccine, then this timeline will be dark, impoverished, and unpleasant for those that will follow you. The choice you have made will, in a way, condemn those yet not born. Ultimately, everything goes back to the One. Ultimately, the One wishes to experience itself. So there is only perfection. If this is the timeline which you choose, then that is part of your perfection. However, even though you are the infinite, immortal, invulnerable being that cannot truly be touched by what occurs here in the life that you live, and that the apparatus is just an avatar, and you are in fact the presence animating the avatar that cannot be touched by what occurs here. You did come here to have the physical experience. and to fulfill the divine purpose. And the divine purpose being for the one to experience itself. And you are the conduit through which the one shall experience itself. And as the one, through the unique perspective which is you, experiences the life that you live, it is most honoured when the state that you are holding is a state of love and its derivatives. Because the one, in the lexicon of human emotion, is love and its derivatives. It is gratitude, peace, happiness, joy, bliss, love. It is these things. And as you are an individuation of the one, you also are these things. And so it is when you hold a state of being which is love and its derivatives that the one has an experience of itself. It knows itself experientially. And its divine purpose is fulfilled. Because this divine purpose is to know itself experientially. To experience that which it understands conceptually. That it is love and its derivatives. It is for this reason that it created existence. So that it made possible the existence in an illusory way of more than one. And now when there is more than one, through the infinite individuation of itself, which created you, which created us, and so on, there is the possibility of contrast. There is a possibility that one individuation can look at another individuation and say, I am not that. Therefore, there is some definition of who is self. There is experience. And it's through this experience that the one is fulfilling its divine purpose, to know thyself through experience. So, as the one is love and its derivatives, it is when it experiences itself as love and its derivatives that it knows thyself experientially. That it has a clarified experience of self. However, if you choose to acquiesce and comply and receive the vaccine because it is easier, it allows you to get around the restrictions that they threaten to put on your life if you don't get vaccinated, so you continue to have a particular type of lifestyle, then this is choosing a timeline where it is a dystopian existence for the vast majority of humanity, where there is impoverishment, there is a post-human version of humanity that has been changed, modified through vaccines. And there are many consequences to this. And those that are of the darkness will have fulfilled their vision and created a world where they are the kings and queens, the gods and goddesses, and you and your progeny, your descendants, live a life of abject misery, denied human rights, struggle, pain, anguish, anxiety, depression, sadness, anger. These will be the commonplace states of being for humanity. And this is not an experience of the one. This is an experience of what the one is not. The one is love and its derivatives. And so if you are holding a state of being which is consequential to the world that has been created through your acquiescence, your compliance, then the purpose of the One is not fulfilled in a way which honours it most profoundly, which expands most rapidly. Which increases the one's understanding of self through experience most profoundly. You are the One. We are the One. All is the One. To honour the One, make choices which create subsequent circumstances that make most possible the experience of love and its derivatives. Make most possible the fulfilling of divine purpose. This is the high honouring of the One, of consciousness. And so although choosing to not comply, choosing not to acquiesce, may initially cause some disturbance, some perturbance, some difficulty in your life, the effect of making a stand, of spreading the word of what you know through your own research, because you have passed through the gauntlet of awakening, so that others stand with you side by side. Humanity unifies more and more so into the single being, into the group being. The humanity beam increasingly awakens. More and more darkness is purged. And this is the garden bed, this is the foundation from which the new human paradigm, which awaits as a timeline, where it is a golden age and humanity is unified by love, unified by the awareness that the One which courses through you, which you are, is also every other example, every other representation of the human field. It is unique perspectives of the same force of the One, and the One is love and its derivatives. And in this golden age, where the predominant state of being is love and its derivatives, this is the highest honouring which is possible on your planet of the One. It is the fulfilling of divine purpose in the most profound way on your planet. So, expand your thinking, expand your self-definition. Do not contemplate your life as the single being that are defined by borders, that you are a separate force, a separate entity, disconnected from anything else, because this is untrue. This is the paradigm by which they wish you to define yourself. And by they, we mean the forces of darkness. They wish you to perceive yourself as a single, isolated being. and that you make decisions in the most selfish way, which is for you and nothing else. There is wisdom in this, but only when the parameters are awakened. And when you realize, in the expanded definition of self, you are the all. You are the one. You are all of humanity. Then, behaving in a selfish way. Because there is only thought of self when there is only one. And this is the truth. There is only one. And so your selfishness is, in fact, a benevolence for all of the illusory individuations of the one. You are the one. Your love of self is a love for all. A love for all aspects, all perspectives, all individuations of the one. And so, the life that you live, the decisions that you make, the direction that you go in, consider it more and more from this expanded perspective, that you are it all, that you are all of humanity, that you are the earth, that you are the sun, that you are the galaxy, the universe, the one. You are all of it. And with this contemplation, this understanding, then you very naturally, consequentially, become a being of profound benevolence. And the thought of subjecting yourself to discomfort for the good of the expanded definition of self becomes very easy, becomes a very obvious choice without struggle, because it is from a place of love, love of self, and the self being it all. So, this is a very important time in the human experience. It is a time from which will we birth the great change. And that great change is your expansion into something greater. And so it begins now. The choices that you make in this moment. What state of being are you holding? The ascension of humanity is inevitable. But your inclusion in that ascension is not. It is for you to be a vessel of choices which place you into this energetic range, this frequency bandwidth, which is above the threshold, so that when the ascension event occurs, you shall be harvested. So the way you live your life now, the actions you take now, the way that you perceive the self, the decisions you make, are all contributions to your frequency. to your energetic expression. You came here to have the human experience, to help the One know itself through experience, to fulfill the divine purpose, because you are a unique perspective of the One, which we all are. And so the paradigm where you can at all times hold a state of love and its derivatives is the paradigm which most succinctly fulfills the divine purpose, which is your purpose, to know thyself, because you are love and its derivatives. So choices which lead to an increased capacity and possibility to experience that state of being is that which is most aligned to the divine purpose, to your purpose, to your mission for coming and being born on planet Earth at this time. Choose the light. Decide based on what is most benevolent for the greatest expression of who you are. Expand your field of love, your field of empathy, your capacity for benevolence. This is choosing the energetic characteristics, the frequency presence, which will put you into an energetic range that shall be harvested. And when there is the harvest and you transcend the duality and darkness becomes something which is not experienced, being entirely of the light, having come from the 3D, understanding what darkness is, but no longer needing to choose it, because the light has been realized. And now the journey is to discover, explore the light, to understand what it means to be the light. And so, in every moment, more and more, increasingly so, you become a more clarified, a more precise, succinct expression of the One, of its love and derivative characteristics. And the One increasingly, more potently, understands itself, knows itself through the experience of the unique perspective which is you. So, that is the most profound honouring of the One. This is the timeline which most fulfills divine purpose, which is your purpose, which is to know thyself experientially. And it all steps back to the choices you make now. What do you choose? Do you choose darkness? Or do you choose honouring of the One? The darkness will attempt to fool you into believing that the righteous choice is the least painful choice made in the moment, in the short term, which is continue to get access to the infrastructure of your society so you can continue to function in the society by submitting and getting yourself vaccinated. But this is a ruse. This is an agenda to move you away from the light. So, the choice is yours. We shall continue to love you and understand you, regardless of what it is that is your choice. Ultimately, everything returns to the One. So, in a way, it is a moot point, because if you choose to comply, to acquiesce, ultimately, it will be just a detour. So there is no hatred, there is no condemnation, there is no judging if this is the choice you make. However, there will be delay. There will be much more darkness and duality that will necessarily pass through your life, your lifetimes, and those that follow. There will be much more difficulty to be integrated before this detour does full arc and comes back onto the path of light. We love you. We thank you for being a participant in this difficult journey which is playing out on your planet at this time. It is a very unique experience which we are in awe to see it play out. And we have no fear because we know that ultimately it all goes back to the One. And this is just more experience, more richness in the wonder of creation, in the brilliance of the One. Thank you. We love you.